Hey everyone, it's dragonrider. Let's get into the Mage theory crafting for Festival of Legends. Now, this is going to be a very low curve kind of video. There might be some later game mages, but you know what? For me, I love and miss Mech Mage, and I'm gonna try it again. That's right. That's what I put together here. You can see this curve. Lots of 1s, 2s, and 3s, and then not much else. A little bit of other stuff, but it was kind of interesting to build. You can kind of see here, this is the Mage mechs. Once the expansion comes around and rotation happens, that's 5. There's not a lot of options there for Mage actual mechs. There are a decent chunk of neutrals here, but like some of them, Explosive Sheep, don't really want to play. Naval Mine, not really. Do you really want to set your mana and hand size to 11 with the new audio amplifier? Not really. So it did kind of feel like some of these are a little bit limiting. You know, Steam Cleaner, you don't really want to play that. And that's kind of it. But I still think that there is some potential here. So this tops out at Gaia because Colossals are staying and Gaia is huge. I mean, being able to immediately summon 2 mechs that can rush and start dealing some damage, incredible. And, you know, if that's all of the mechs you have on the board, you still get 2 damage. And dealing damage to all enemies is fantastic. So Gaia here. And then, of course, you know, I wanted to fill in with a bunch of mechs. So things like the Click Clocker, the new frequency oscillator that's going to discount. You still have amalgams to be able to discover because you still want to try to discover some more mechs. And if I can discover more Gaias, especially, that's going to be a very, very good one. Or something like Ziliax to discover that is great. Trying to build up a board of security automatons. A little bit of dredge here. If it's a mech, you can draw it. So there's a lot of mechs. So very likely you will be able to get some draw out of the trench surveyors. I did originally have 2 of these Asheran sweepers in the deck because thought, well, maybe you can get some value out of dredging them. But ultimately, because of some of the other cards I wanted to include, I just went down to 1. So there's that. But I also thought, you know what? Some of these cards, like the Ziliax, these Bronze Gatekeepers, are going to be in the core set. And you know what? Let's go for it. The great thing that I love about these Bronze Gatekeepers, the Ziliax, and I even put in 1 Replicating Menace, is you can magnetize these. So you can attach them to another mech on board and make the stats stronger. So essentially they're like a buff. If you have a mech on the board and you magnetize to it and then hit face, you're hitting face with an even stronger minion. Or if your opponent has cleared or something, you can at least just play these as bodies. So that seems pretty neat. I think there's a lot of use there. I only put in 1 Replicating Menace and then 1 War Gear. Just because of some of the other things that I wanted to put in. You could test around with switching and including duplicates of some of these. I do have 2 copies of Mothership because I really like the rush effect there. Plus summoning a couple more mechs is fantastic. Especially if you can maybe pull off like a Gaia and then Mothership thing later. But I also wanted to include this new Metronome card. It's the after you play a 1 cost, you'll draw a 2 cost, and then it increases. So then you can play a 2 cost, it'll draw a 3. And when I originally was putting this deck together, I had no 4 cost things at all. So I decided 1 Replicating Menace, and then I ended up putting in Pozic, the audio engineer. This is the one that Battlecry puts 2 3/3 bots to your opponent's hand, and then if this dies off, you summon those. So I thought, well, those are going to be mechs as well. Might as well also have a 4 cost. If you do get a lot of value out of the Metronome and get to draw something that costs 4, there's another 4. Plus, I just kind of want to test this and see how effective it could be. But if you get this killed off and then, you know, you summon one of those bots out of your opponent's hand, And then maybe you're able to put like Zilliax onto that and then rush it in and clear something. I just think there's a lot of potential there. So figured might as well try it and see what happens. Now, the other kind of thing that I put in here was I actually included 2 copies of these Frozen Touches because these, with all of these mechs and the cheap minions, you're going to be able to infuse these very, very easily. And it's a little bit of just kind of over-the-top damage to help you if, especially your opponent is clearing some of your minions, then hopefully you can kind of keep the Frozen Touch chain going and deal damage every turn with Frozen Touch value, and hopefully be able to either close out the game with mechs or with Frozen Touch or some combination. I really enjoyed before. Of course, you still have like Seafloor Gateway to draw and then reduce the cost. I really enjoyed Mech Mage in the past when it was popular, and with some of these things coming back into the core set, and we still have Colossals, and there's some cool tools, I just thought, I want to try Mech Mage again. So I'm excited to see if something like this actually works. And, you know, we still have the Mecha Sharks, so being able to summon some things seems fantastic. Now, I will say the other one that I also thought about including, it's not a mech itself, but it is the neutral minion that if you have a mech, you summon the 2/2/1s. And I think that that could be an inclusion because you're still summoning things, and that could work. It's the Sea Scout operator here, and it just works really well with being able to play the Mecha Sharks and summon multiple things, or have these mechs, like multiple mechs out to be able to magnetize to. So Sea Scout operator also could be one that I might try switching in, but I really kind of flipped these cards around a lot because I wasn't sure which ones I wanted in the deck and which ones I didn't. So I think this is something I'm probably going to play around with, but I had those in before I realized it was literally a bunch of 3-drops and then like a 5, 6, and 7, or a 5, 6, 8. So I thought I maybe want to cut a little bit of the 3 costs. And now to flip over to our community submitted deck, we have a mage deck here from Diego Centric. Thank you so much for the deck, Diego. And this one is still kind of aggressive, kind of low curve. It actually tops out at these couple of 5-cost minions, but this is like an arcane, just kind of aggressive, like spell-focused aggressive type of damage deck. Burst damage. The Vexillus, super cool. I definitely thought that this was going to be extremely popular and create like a broken deck when it was first revealed. And now I think it might have enough of the support it needs to be used. And going into the 4-set meta, maybe this is where it kind of shines. But casting your arcane spells twice, going to be kind of huge. And I love this too. There's a lot of spells being played, and Diego put a lot of these Nagas in the deck as well, which the Nagas really kind of work on playing with spells. So you have the Siren. After you play a Naga, refresh 2 mana crystals. Then it'll switch to a spell. So then after you play a spell, refresh. That was definitely very common. School teachers, of course, huge right now. They're just very, very good. The keyboard soloist, very interesting. I am not sure yet if these are going to be fantastic or if they're going to fall a little flat because you have to control no other minions to get that effect. So you really will have to kind of time when you play these or make trades or use your own spells to kill something off potentially to then play the soloist and then some spells if you want that spell damage. Of course, Commander Savara, fantastic for some of this. I really like this Treasure Guard as well. The ability to just keep drawing and that Death Rattle with a taunt, making it so that your opponent kind of has to hit into that to trigger the Death Rattle, seems pretty great. And, you know, kind of works with that Spite Lash Siren of playing a Naga and then playing a spell and refreshing if you get to that point. So that's pretty great. Kind of includes Okani in here, just probably as like a little bit of a filler stall tactic, probably. You know, if you're just waiting like one more turn to draw another spell or another little Naga or something, draw spell damage. I do like this inclusion of the Night Cloak Sanctum as well, just to be able to freeze your opponent's stuff. Like, I don't think it's included in here. I mean, this is like the only thing that generates skeletons. So it's not focused on like making the skeletons and you know, using Deathborn to clear and a bunch of burst damage. This is just to freeze opponent stuff. And I like that because I think a deck like this might really have a hard time. And the ranked spells like Flurry is rotating out. So the Nightcloak Sanctum seems like a good kind of alternative. And then, of course, it looks like it does include a lot of these minions to kind of generate some of these arcane bolts. You know, you still have the arcane worm. You have the arc splitter that creates those. And then you have things like the Magister's Apprentice, creating, you know, cheaper arcane spells. You have the rewind to try to discover something that you've already played. Solid Alibis, again, as another stall tactic. Some Discover plus a cheap Naga. This Submerged Space Rock is kind of interesting. It is an elemental and not like a Naga, but it does still give you 2 arcane mage spells. And again, with only a 4 expansion, you know, 4 set meta, the arcane mage spells are going to be pretty limited. So it seems likely that you actually will get a couple of arcane spells that you want, or that would actually be beneficial, because the pool that you can actually get generated is going to be pretty small. So I really like this inclusion as well. And then the new card, Light Show, pretty interested in this one, but dealing, you know, 2 beams at enemies that deal 2 damage. Now, this one is going to work kind of like it does for Arcane Missiles, if anybody, you know, can remember that card, where it would just do the damage like one at a time, separate. It's not going to like shoot them all at the same time. I mean, the animation might be like that, but I think it's going to be like spotlights that are all separate. The damage on it doesn't increase, but the amount of these like light beams that you'll shoot increases. So each time you play a Light Show, it'll be shoot 2 beams and then shoot 3 beams. So they'll each do 2 damage like every time. The thing that I also like about this is enemies. So if their board on the other side, your opponent's board is empty, these Light Show beams are going to hit their face. And I think that's kind of the aim of this whole deck as, you know, as a total. And of course it includes this new audio splitter, which ironically enough is a mech. And I looked at that and originally had put it in my version of Mech Mage, but then I decided I'm barely running any spells and I wanted some of those other things that I talked about. So I actually took audio splitter out because my 3 costs were just way too heavy. So I took these out. But I think being able to copy a spell, I mean, there's not a ton of high cost spells in here either, but copying a Light Show, or, you know, copying something that's generated, copying a Solid Alibi even, or a Rewind, going to be very, very good for a deck like this. So I think this is a really clever deck. And I honestly forgot that there was this many Nagas still going to be in Standard. So I am very, very curious to see. I think with some of these tools, there's going to be a lot of Light Shows going on and a lot of damage. So very interested to see how this deck does, but I like it a lot. So again, thank you so much, Diego. And thank all of you for checking these videos out. I have been loving the people's comments that you've been leaving. Love talking about these, and, you know, I love like seeing the kind of different points of view, even if they're different from mine. Maybe I don't think a card's going to be great, but you all think it's going to be fantastic. Love hearing that. So please keep those comments coming. Thank you for checking these out. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and click into this video next to check out the previous Theorycraft video that I did, which was Hunter, one of my favorite classes. So check that out next, and I'll see you in the next one.